Everybody assumes like there's a path you take, but at the end of the day, I can't tell you what to do. I can only share the learnings and the wisdom that I've received from other individuals. And being prepared and knowing what you want to get out of the relationship, I think is really critical. I generally learn much more than I feel like I'm giving. Don't wait, create those opportunities where you can have someone who is going to take time with you to navigate whatever questions you have. A lot of times I've been asked, when should I start becoming a mentor? When should I start mentoring? And I'm like, now, right now.
Imagine a moment in your life when someone believed in you more than you ever did. A moment where a single conversation forever changed the course of your life. Perhaps it was a teacher, a family member, or even a stranger who saw your potential, tapped into your hidden strengths, and unleashed possibilities that you never thought were possible. Now consider this. What if that transformative power of mentorship could be harnessed, shared, and multiplied, not just for a fortunate few, but for everyone seeking growth, knowledge, and personal transformation? Today's standout guest, Heidi Hauver, is a forward-thinking and strategic people leader who collaborates with technology companies as a chief people officer. She is also a devoted volunteer and community advocate who supports many organizations as a board member and mentor. What is it that you do and why does it matter?
Oh, it's such a great question. I think when I originally started my career, I, like many people, wasn't quite certain what that journey would look like. And I have spent much of my career in human resources, people experience, people and culture. It evolves depending on, the year and obviously the organization you're working for. But essentially, I'm a leader. I'm a people leader. I help to create great cultures and organizations that where people can bring their authentic selves to work, do amazing work. And I think that, I feel like much of my role is about innovating and adapting to the changing norms of business and the world of work. And it's been a really interesting journey so far. I think when I started my career, initially, human resources was much more traditional, transactional. And today, information, human resources is at the forefront of so many businesses' success. And I think that, in the last number of years, we've really demonstrated strategic values and have demonstrated that, without people, you really don't have a business. And so it's nice to see that, people and culture are getting the kind of the shout out that they deserve at this this time.
And there is something that you said that caught my attention. I'm a leader, and this is what I do. And I love that. So now let's take a look a little bit earlier and take a look at the things that have shaped the leader you are and that you were meant to be. So can you share a story from your childhood or early life that had a significant impact on your decision to become a leader?
I think that, one of the things that struck me really early on that I appreciate today is that, my parents both really loved what they did. They, had, very different roles than mine, but they really liked what they did every day. They woke up, they were happy to go to work. And that I remember thinking to myself, later on, I want to love what I do. And that's really important to me. And I mean, I instill that into everyone I'm talking to, whether it's former mentorship, parenting to even my own little children. Finding something that you love to do is really important because, there are going to be times when things go great and things don't go great. But, when you're passionate about what you do and it brings you purpose, it really helps kind of you navigate through the journey. I would say that, watching them navigate, their own kind of, jobs and seeing, again, the joy that they had in that work. Instilled in me an interest to go find something that I love to do. And that was really important to me. I didn't want to be someone that didn't, we call it the Sunday scaries today. I didn't be that person on Sunday evening that didn't want to go to work the next day. And I've met people throughout my entire career who are in that position for a variety of reasons. They're not able to make changes. but I wanted to always love what I did. And so that to me at an early age showed me that, regardless of the roles that my parents had, and they were more traditional workers, my dad was I have a family of truck drivers, and my mom worked for a local factory. They loved what they did. They made connections with their colleagues, and every day they enjoyed going to work. And that to me always resonated, even as a young age. I knew they loved what they did, and I was like, okay, wherever I'm destined, I want to love what I do. It took me a while to figure out. It wasn't a clear-cut path.
Mm-hmm.
I relocated. Originally, I'm from the Eastern Townships in Quebec, a beautiful part of the country, and I relocated to Ottawa over 25 years ago. And I was working full time as an executive assistant, administrative assistant for a management consulting firm, and I went back to college at nighttime. And I did night schooling forever, up until the point where I graduated, 12 years later with a degree in HR. And I think a lot of people think I took this, like, everybody assumes like there's a path you take, you graduate, you go co-op, you do this. I took that. It wasn't like that for me. I needed to pay my way through school. I was actually loved the idea of being able to have schooling and theory at night and then bring it into my work during the day. I thought that was really awesome. I think it made for better, better papers because I was able to bring what I was doing during the day and obviously kind of, contextualize that in the work that I was doing for school. But I think it took me a little bit longer to get my education and my academic piece done. But I don't regret it because I think I persevered. I was very dedicated. I had to be very organized because I was doing school, part-time plus working a
Yeah.
full-time role. But again, I think, everybody's path is very unique, and I think you need to celebrate that. I'm exactly where I should be. And the path I took is exactly the path that I needed to take to get here. And the learning along the way was incredible. And so I always try to share that with young people. You don't have to follow so-and-so's footsteps. Follow your own, like make your own path and celebrate that. And there's going to be times when you're progressing and there's going to be times when you're feeling like you're not. One of the reasons I started volunteering was that I knew no one in the city and I wanted to develop a network. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't appreciate how valuable that would be. At that time, I wanted to meet new people. And so I was navigating this new city on my own, as many of us do when we relocate to new cities or countries. And so I started volunteering to establish a new network. And then I got hooked. Became a passion of mine, giving back to the community. But the learning and growth that I've had throughout that time of me giving back, I've gotten so much more from the experiences. And I think that, we can't underestimate the value of being able to volunteer in your community and how much you can grow as a person, and
Yeah.
also professionally. I think it's really important.
And so we're gonna come back to this topic more in details a little bit later. But you said it, you have to create your own path. And I feel like I don't know if we are ignorant or if we can call it being naive, or we just think, especially when we are young, but not only actually, that there is a straightforward, the line to your career path and to your life path anyway should be straight. You graduate, you get a husband, you have kids, you get this beautiful career at the same time. And that's what I thought and listened until I realized that I had no project beyond the age of 30, right? So, because to me, 30 was, I feel like a deadline. I would have had achieved all my personal and professional project by the age of 30. I would have had been at the peak of my career at the age of
Obviously,
30,
yeah.
married with kids, the house, the dog, and the picture, and all of this. And then I turned 30 and I had a breakdown. For weeks, days and nights, for weeks, I would cry. I would cry myself out because I obviously didn't achieve anything that I was on my, to-do list, because life wasn't, linear, and life is never, never, no matter where you come from, life is never linear. But that's what I thought. and I turned 30 and I felt like I was a failure. And I even didn't know what to do with my life because I had never portrayed or projected myself beyond the age of 30. So I think we put too much pressure on ourselves when we are young,
Right.
when actually what we need to understand, and that's what, we are having those conversations on this podcast,
Yeah.
that life is a journey and you have to be able to embrace your own journey. It is perfect. I like to say it is perfectly imperfect because
Mm.
it is your own, it is yours, and it shouldn't look like anyone else.
No, and celebrating that progress and maybe the missteps. And sometimes we do take a step or two backwards to go forward, and sometimes there are linear steps, right, where you're kind of going in parallel for a while. I think it's fascinating because as women, we um, I would say all genders, right? Like we have a lot of hopes and dreams as we're kind of growing up, and there are as well a lot of pressure. And I think I wish we spent more time, energy, and effort early on, kind of paying more attention to what brings you purpose, what makes you happy, and then follow that. Because no matter where you end up, as long as you're doing work that is bringing you joy, bringing you purpose, you're going to be in a good place. And
Yeah.
many people will tell you, um, you know when you find that, right, when you get to a place where you can recognize that the work that you're doing truly brings you joy and that you would do it for free. I will often have this conversation with young folks that I'll mentor, and I'll say, like, would you do this for free? Yes.
Mm.
When you get that
Yeah.
immediate yes, you're like, this is your passion. This is what you should follow. And I think that, I got really lucky. I stumbled into kind of HR, and I realized that HR is obviously a very, there's a lot of things that are under the HR umbrella. I definitely am a generalist. It took me a while to recognize that, I'm happiest when I have my hands in all aspects of the function and not focusing or specializing on one area. And I would say that as I continue to grow in my career, the people leadership piece, like inspiring the next generation of leaders, that I
Mm.
realized was something that I was really excited about. I love helping other people. That's my why. And I only figured that out. I'm in my 40s. 40s, by the way, better than 30s. Anybody out there wondering, like you, what's next? I think the older we get, the better we get. We're wiser. We have more time to reflect and appreciate what truly matters. And sometimes we have to slow down
Yeah.
to sort of, speed up and figure that out. But I think my why is really about helping others. And once I started becoming a leader of others and helping to uplift and empower and inspire them, I was able to really feel a lot more joy in the work that I was doing. And so now my kind of raison d'etre is anything that I'm doing. If it's helping a founder launch a startup, or if it's about helping a volunteer organization, create a new strategic plan, it's about, am I helping others, and what does that look like, and what's that rippling effect potentially? That
Mm.
brings me a lot of joy.
And fulfillment, I guess.
Fulfillment, totally. Yeah, purpose, right? We're all
Purpose.
looking for that. Hierarchy, right? When you think of the Maslow's hierarchy, that self-actualization piece, what is it right now in your life that's not bringing you joy that you could change to bring you more joy in your life, that can help you reach that purpose? I think that's really important. Like, we all know life is short, and you want to make the most out of it. And so if you look at your life now and think, in this aspect of my work, I don't enjoy this. Well, what could you add or change, or negotiate, right, in that piece of work that could bring you more joy, that might help have it be more fulfilling for you? I think that's something to be reflecting on.
Yeah. A question I like to ask all my guests is, if I were to ask your loved ones 3 words to
Oh, wow.
describe you, what would they say?
I'm thinking of my husband. So I'll think of my partner in life. My one of my my favorite people ever. I suspect, because we've talked about this, I would say he would say generous of spirit and of my time, which is why I mentor a lot.
Yeah.
He would probably say, I have good instincts. So my instincts on people are really strong. and I would say loving, caring.
Yeah. Loving, caring, we can say, right? This is also why mentorship is such a big part of your life. But let's get back to trusting your instinct.
Mm.
I feel as a woman, we have a strong instinct.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, we don't listen to it,
Right.
right? We don't know how to do it. We ignore it. Or sometimes we feel something and we don't even know this is what our instinct is.
Right.
So, is that something that you learned to listen to or and to trust, or that's something from a very young age that you always knew, this deep feeling or this inner voice that like, I gotta trust myself. I gotta trust my gut.
I would say later, midlife. Midlife so
Oh,
far.
tell us more about that.
Probably more in my later 20s. I started sort of trusting myself a bit more. And I think doing that reflection, having a growth mindset is really critical. I think that, and I know a lot of great, available information out there about growth mindset. But to me, it's really about taking the learning, doing the reflection, and then making changes to enable whatever that growth needs to be. And I would say from an instinctual perspective, it starts with trusting yourself first and foremost. It is about, and I think that's really important when you do start mentoring, is that you need to be able to trust yourself first before you start doling out advice and counsel and guidance to other people. And I think that was definitely, when I started mentoring more and more in my later 20s, as I started growing my own career more, and becoming more the mentor, not just the mentee, I had to start having those conversations with, I know this is the right direction, the right connection to make, right? I love making connections for people. That is something that brings me a lot of joy. And maybe that's in the recruiter in me, right? I love kind of bringing people together that should be together. But I think you have to start listening, like, I feel this way. And this is why. Now, I've worked for a lot of technology companies, a lot of data companies. So what I think even in my later 20s, early 30s, I started realizing I needed to validate that, not for me, but for others. So I feel really strongly about this. And here's the data to prove the rationalization as to why
Yeah.
I'm wanting to make this decision or go this route. And I think that is about built confidence over the years, where like I felt really strongly about this, whatever it is. I'm going to go get the data now that can complement that decision.
Yeah.
And then that inevitably boosted the results of being like, that instinct was right on making that connection, hiring that person, not moving ahead with this project at this point in time, all of those things that, when you have to use judgment. Like if you think about it, every day, all day, we're making thousands and thousands of decisions, often without even thinking about it. Why sometimes do we go, oh, I know the answer, but I'm going to question myself at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe it's as simple as just saying, I'm not actually going to question myself. I'm just going to go with it. I'm going to do it. Someone once said to me, I once said, oh, I'm going to fake it until I make it. And they said, no, you're going to face it until you make it.
Yeah.
I love that,
Ooh.
right?
Let's
We're
say it again. Let's say it again.
face it until you make it. And I think that's super powerful.
It is. And I definitely don't believe into the fake it until you make it. I don't believe this is healthy and I don't believe this is sustainable on a
Right.
personal level and on a relationship level. You don't want to fake a person when building relationship with others just because you believe it's by faking it that you will make it happen. No,
Right.
face it. I love that.
Totally.
Learn from it or
Right.
learn what you need to learn in order to become that person, to become the leader you were meant to be. And as you learn and get better, you forge relationships along the way. So now let's talk about the practicality of mentorship. Of course, there is the philosophy and there is the value, the cultural value behind mentorship. But let's take a look at the practicality. How did you leverage your community work to stand out from the crowd while advancing your career?
So I had the opportunity to get formally mentored through a variety of different organizations that I was a part of through as an HR leader, through the HRPA and other organizations I was a part of. I've done a lot of work with women's internet organizations as well. So first as a mentee, and then obviously paying it forward. And I think that's an incredibly important point that I hope we can explore later in my career, paying it forward to other women. And I would say that, every time I had the opportunity to be mentored, I made sure I walked away with at least 1 or 3 things that I was going to put forward, actionable takeaways. And I think that was really important. The one thing I will say is that I always drove the relationship. So even as a mentee, I came in on time. I was dependable, reliable. I took ownership of what we were going to be talking about. I respected the individual's time that they were giving me. I set the agenda, right? I came prepared. And I think that that's why I was really fortunate to have developed such amazing mentorship relationships, formal or even informal. I think it's really important to understand what it is you're hoping to get out of the discussion you're going to be having with someone, being respectful of that time, and just really taking ownership to make sure that you're getting that value out of it that you want. And I do that now. Obviously, as a mentor, I try to share with individuals the power of taking ownership and showing up for themselves and not apologizing. Here's what I'm hoping to get out of this conversation. Here's what I'm hoping to get out of this relationship. And I think mentorship is, I think, the one important thing that I've learned over the years. And it was one of my amazing mentors who I have an incredible relationship with. They shared that it's not about mentorship. Sometimes will be you're teaching. I don't feel that way. I feel like I'm guiding. I'm being curious. I'm asking great questions to help them formulate their own plan. But at the end of the day, I can't tell you what to do. I can suggest ideas. And I think that was really powerful for me. My mentors never told me what to do. They shared their lived experiences with me to help me reflect on that, so I could take all the good nuggets away from what they've learned and then, put my own, kind of help me navigate my own journey. And I think even the language we use is really important. Like, I'll often say, here's some suggestions for you to consider. I mean, I do that in my day-to-day work, but I also do it when I'm mentoring with someone. And I'll be like, here's why I think you could consider this. But I'm not saying you should go do X, Y, Z, this worked for me. I can only share the learnings and the wisdom that I've received from other individuals. And I think that's the collective power of mentoring. It's not just me and my lived experiences. I'm bringing all the wisdom I've gained from all these incredible other people that have touched my lives, and I'm able to share that out. And so, but being prepared and knowing what you want to get out of the relationship, I think, is really critical. And making sure you're checking in along the way. Often when I mentor, I'll be like, are you getting what you're looking for from our relationship? Are we spending enough time together? Am I asking enough questions? Are you having enough time in between our calls? And I think doing those check-ins is really important, because you can get feedback from the person you're supporting. And I would say too that I generally learn much more than I feel like I'm giving. Like, every time I walk away from a formal relationship as a mentee, with a mentee, one, I've created a lasting friendship, but two, I feel like, wow, I just walked away with a lot of additional insight that I didn't have, because that person may be at a different stage in their career, maybe even in a completely different sector, and I'm able to take away a lot of really interesting facts and insight from them and their journey. Again, to pay that forward to someone else. Confidentiality, obviously really important, and creating that safe space where you've got that trust and credibility is key. And a lot of times, formally or even informally, you got to create that really quickly. And so sometimes, like, a guiding sense of principles, maybe you make them up in your first call. Like, what are our guiding principles that are going to help us navigate this relationship as we go forward?
And you said that mentorship is a two-way street, right? And mentoring is not teaching, is guiding. So in your opinion, what are the key qualities or characteristics that make a mentor effective and influential?
Being present, and truly, if you're going to commit and be intentional with your time. Be honest too. If you don't have the hour, but you've got a great 30 minutes, then be okay to say, I've got 30 minutes, and then be truly present. I think being curious, and being open-minded is really critical. And again, that sense of trust and credibility is, I think, imperative. Once you lose that, it's harder to get that back. And I think, just showing up in your best self, and being available for someone else and being a sounding board. And I think, I think the biggest takeaway for me is, what does this person need? What are they hoping to walk away from at the end of this discussion? Because at the end of the day, at the end of the discussion, you want that person to feel like, this was a really good use of my time with Heidi. You don't want them to walk away and go, that wasn't a great use of my time. I could have gotten, I didn't get what I was looking for. So I always like to kind of initiate that right off the get. Let's set some expectations for success here. What are you hoping to get out of it? How can I make this conversation, the most comfortable for you? And so you can establish that trust, that rapport right off the bat. But I think being present, really showing up intentionally and authentically as possible, and being willing to share your experience as well. You said it, it's not one way. It's not fair for me to ask you all the questions and for me not to share some of my own lived experiences with you. It really needs to be a two-way discussion. And I think both parties need to kind of own that.
Exactly. And we have a great question from Erin, who is joining us from the UK. Talking about mentoring, can you explain the situation where mentoring falls on your shoulder by a default system, not necessarily when you set out to be a mentor? Oh, that's a very good question. And I believe those kind of situations can happen when there is a mentorship program within an organization.
Well, and sometimes you naturally become a mentor because you're a natural leader, and it's an opportunity, right? Because for some reason, everyone is going to you because you inspire them, or that you've accomplished something that they're hoping to accomplish. And sometimes it happens almost very informally. And I mean, again, taking stock of whether that is something you're comfortable with or not, but it can be a great opportunity. I think long before I officially started mentoring, I was doing it informally, just, naturally, people would start coming to me, and that does demonstrate you're that natural leader. People are going to you because they trust you. They think that you may be able to support them, validate their ideas, be an incredible sounding board for them. So I think it's an opportunity. I think you need to determine your comfort zone with that, and obviously make sure that if it's related to a role particularly, that might lead to people leadership possibilities and opportunities for you down the line, just because naturally you're taking that role on as a mentor. I hope I answered the question in the way that the person was hoping to get an answer, but that's what I'm taking away. I definitely see this as an opportunity.
Yeah. Nature and nurture dichotomy, exactly. Yeah, Erin. So a recent study in the UK revealed that a shocking 71% of female workers feel underappreciated at work, so facing barriers to career progression. So those numbers are for the UK, but we know in the US, in Canada, in many countries in the world, this is we share similar challenges and similar situations as women in the workplace. How can mentorship go a step further and support a woman's career progression?
I think it's an important element of part of that sort of that pathway that you need to create for yourself. And I'm going to say that again, that you need to create for yourself. We talked about that at the beginning of the call. We can't rely on others to kind of help us define that. We really do need to take a lead on that and be unapologetic about that. If we want to achieve certain things in our life, we need to be the one spearheading that and championing those things for ourselves, again, unapologetically. And so even if you think, well, Heidi, that's great, but I don't have access to a mentorship program, I can't afford to join a program, or I'm not even sure where to start, it doesn't have to be formal. It could be informal. I've many people reached out to me over the years through, different organizations I've been a part of, or when I meet someone at an event, or even someone reaching out to me on LinkedIn, asking for a discussion about a particular topic. And I think, you don't need to wait. I've said this before, create. Don't wait. Create those opportunities where you can have someone who is going to take time with you to navigate whatever questions you have, maybe about the next step in your journey in your career, or how you want to maybe go out on your own, or maybe you don't even know what questions to be asking yourself, but you know you want to change, then don't wait, right? Create those opportunities for yourself unapologetically. I think that's something that as women, we will often do, right? I can't ask for help. I should be able to do it on my own. I don't have the network that can support me. I disagree. I think you can go and create that network of like-minded individuals that are going to come together. Right before the pandemic, a really amazing woman I know in Ottawa was creating a lean-in circle, but they were doing it at nighttime, and with young kids I couldn't attend. But I really love the idea of bringing like-minded women together to uplift and empower and inspire one another. And I said, could I take whoever's not able to take, a commit to an evening event? Could I do something at lunchtime during the week? And they said, yeah, I'll make those connections for you. We subsequently, brought together 20 amazing women right before the pandemic. We had a big meeting at the office that I was in at the time, at my workplace. And then the pandemic hit. Things changed greatly for how we were going to be able to come together. And lives were disrupted. People were parenting, teaching, working, partnering at home. And it was a very difficult time. But what I will say to you is that network of women over the last 3.5 years still come together on a monthly basis. There's about 5 or 6 women that still come together. And I'm still in touch with a lot of the women that originally were in that lean-in circle. But that was an opportunity we created for ourselves because we were looking for a community of women to come together. And we all have very different backgrounds, but what we have is a friendship and a safe environment where we can come together. And a lot of times we're celebrating each other's success and uplifting each other and motivating and inspiring each other when we're navigating like real life things, whether it's career or things that are happening personally. And so I think that, don't wait, go create those opportunities for yourself, even if it's just one other woman initially, right? Create a circle. And then that might grow into something, or maybe you keep it really small. But, those opportunities are there, and women do, generally speaking, have that open mind and heart to want to help each other out.
Yeah, wow. What a wonderful way to end that conversation. Like it couldn't have been better. Create opportunities for yourself. Do not hesitate to ask for help. This is something that I did struggle with. Now I feel much more comfortable asking for help, or reaching out to people and asking questions. Sometimes I'm confused, I need clarity, and it makes your life so much easier. You have no idea. So if you were holding yourself back from asking questions, asking for support, do it. Stop
Absolutely.
that nonsense, because at the end of the day, we are doing this to ourselves, no one
And the
else.
only other thing I would share is that, a lot of times I've been asked, when should I start becoming a mentor? When should I start mentoring? And I'm like, now, right now, because you are wherever you're at in your career, you've got lived experience you could pass on to someone else. And so don't wait, get out there, be open to those opportunities. And I think especially if you've had the opportunity to be mentored, make the time to pay that forward to someone else. There's a lot of individuals out there that could benefit from a friendly ear and a little bit of advice and counsel. So
Yeah, so Heidi, thank you so much for being a standout guest
thank
today.
you.
We have definitely learned a lot. Thank you so much for your time,
Thank
for
you.
your openness to share your story with us. And for those of you watching and listening to the podcast, I will see you next week for another episode of Stand Out from the Crowd. Thank you. You stay safe and you take care. Bye bye, everyone.